Welcome back to the Observable Unknown. Tonight's letter arrives with a question that many feel, but few articulate without embarrassment. A loyal listener writes, Dear Dr. Ray, in your interlude on how music regulates the nervous system, you talked about how we bring ourselves into rhythm by letting our nervous system imitate the music that we're listening to. But why is it that I always have a drive to listen to some of the most depressing music, stuff that makes me cry, stuff that makes me hurt, stuff that honestly ruins my days and a lot of my relationships? I've been told for a long time that I should change my musical tastes because they're so dark, but I can't help it. I keep coming back to the same terribly sad songs. Is there something really wrong with me? Do I need to see a specialist about this? Sincerely, Chuck J. Chuck, nothing is wrong with you in the crude diagnostic sense, but something is happening, and it deserves to be understood with care rather than corrected with haste. In our recent interlude, we spoke about music as a regulatory force, how rhythm enters the body before meaning, and how the nervous system entrains to pattern and tone. But there is another layer. We do not only regulate with music, we also select music that matches our internal state. Psychological research on mood congruence, including work by Peter Kivy and later empirical studies by Juslin and Västfjäll, suggests that individuals often choose music that reflects their current emotional landscape rather than altering it. In much simpler terms, the music is not causing the feeling is choosing the music. Now we arrive at the more unsettling question: why would the nervous system return again and again to sadness? Research by psychologist Sandra Garrido has shown that individuals prone to rumination or unresolved emotional processing often gravitate toward sad music, not for pleasure alone, but for emotional rehearsal. The music becomes a space where feeling can be revisited, intensified, and, paradoxically, stabilized. There is a strange comfort in familiar pain, not because it's pleasant, but because it's known. From a neurobiological perspective, unresolved emotional experiences do not disappear. They remain partially encoded within the nervous system. The work of researchers like Bessel van der Kolk has shown that emotional memory is often stored somatically, not just cognitively. Sad music, then, may function as a kind of access point. It gives the body permission to feel what has not yet been fully processed. The tears aren't regression. They're, in some cases, incomplete cycles attempting to finish themselves. However, what you described goes beyond occasional catharsis. You said the music is ruining your days and your relationships. This is where we must become much more precise. There's a difference between processing emotion and practicing it. If the same emotional loop is being reinforced without resolution, the nervous system begins to stabilize around sadness as a baseline state. The music stops being a doorway and becomes a dwelling. Let's bring this into the framework we've been building. Your brain is a prediction engine. If you repeatedly expose it to the same emotional pattern, it begins to expect that pattern, then it begins to generate it. Soon the sadness is no longer being evoked by the music. The music is confirming what the nervous system has already predicted. You're not only listening to sadness, you're rehearsing it. Chuck, this isn't about abandoning the music you love. That would be juvenile and ineffective. Your task is more refined. You must change your relationship to the music. You should begin to notice, when are you reaching for it? What state are you already in? What happens after you listen to it? Then, slowly and deliberately, introduce contrast. Not forced positivity, but adjacent emotional tones. Music that carries melancholy, but also movement. Beauty without collapse. Depth without descent. You're not eliminating sadness, you're expanding your emotional range. For listeners who recognize this pattern, this interplay between internal state and external rhythm, the work isn't to eliminate emotion, but to learn how to carry it without being organized by it. And yet, there is a more unsettling question beneath that effort. Not why the feeling is there, but what it's asking you to pay. In my own work, particularly in The Cost of the Move, I explore how the directions we take internally, the paths we return to again and again, are not neutral. What feels like expression may in fact be participation, not in the sense of fault, but in the sense of continuation. Certain forms of engagement, often chosen in the name of relief or authenticity, quietly and with remarkable consistency reproduce the very states they claim to reveal. The nervous system doesn't distinguish cleanly between what we feel and what we repeatedly practice, and over time, practice becomes identity. What you return to returns as you. Chuck, you're not broken. You're listening carefully to something inside you that has not yet been resolved. That question is not whether to stop listening. Instead, your question is whether you can begin to listen with a little more agency and a little less surrender. If this reflection has spoken to you at all, or to any others listening, please write to me at theobservableunknown@gmail.com or text me directly to 336-675-5836. And wherever you've listened to this mailbag installment, please leave a review and a rating. These things help this work reach those who are quietly feeling the same song on repeat. Until next time, remember, you do not become what you feel, you become what you return to. What you return to returns as you.